He didn't survive the shipwreck to die at sea. He survived to become the monster on the island. They survived the storm. They survived the wreck. Then they started killing each other. In 1629, 268 people were stranded on an island off the coast of Australia. Over the next 3 months, more than 125 of them were murdered. Not by starvation, not by the sea, by one man. It was 1628. The Dutch East India Company, the VOC, was the most powerful trading empire in the world, and the Batavia was one of their finest ships. Over 300 passengers and crew, soldiers, merchants, women, children, all bound for the Spice Islands of the East. But there was something rotten aboard before the ship ever left the harbour. The commander was Francisco Pelsaert, respected, experienced, and quietly hated by his own captain. The captain's name was Adrian Jacobs, and he had made a deal with a very dangerous man. That man was Jeronimus Cornelisz. Cornelisz was not a sailor. He was a merchant, a failed apothecary, a man who had already shown he believed normal rules didn't apply to him. He joined the voyage to escape trouble back home. He brought his ideas with him, and those ideas were about to get 125 people killed. June 4th, 1629. The Batavia struck the Abrolhos Reef off the coast of what is now Western Australia, in the middle of the night, at full speed. The ship didn't sink immediately, but it was clear it was never sailing again. 268 people made it off alive. They found themselves on a cluster of tiny, flat islands. No fresh water, no food, scorching sun by day, nothing for miles in any direction. And here's what makes it worse. Commander Pelsaert decided to leave. He took 48 people, officers, loyal men, and set off in a small boat toward Batavia, the nearest Dutch settlement in Java, over 2,000 miles away. His plan was to get help and return. He left 220 people behind. In his absence, someone needed to take charge. Cornelisz was right there. At first, he seemed reasonable. He organized food. He rationed supplies. People trusted him. But Cornelisz wasn't building a community. He was building something else entirely. Narrative. He started by sending the soldiers away. There was a group of armed military men on the island, men who could stop him. Cornelisz told them to search nearby islands for water and supplies. He said it was necessary. It was a lie. He just needed them gone. Because what he was about to do, he couldn't do it with soldiers watching. Narrative. This story became the inspiration for Lord of the Flies, written 300 years later. But that was fiction. This was real. This happened, and if you've ever wondered just how dark human nature gets when there's no one left to stop it, stay with me, because it gets much worse. If you found this channel today, subscribe. This is what we do here. The history they never taught you. Narrative. With the soldiers gone, Cornelisz began selecting his inner circle. Young men, loyal men, men he could corrupt. He gave them an ideology. He told them, some people deserve to live, and some don't. Then he started the list. Narrative. The first killings were quiet. People went missing. A sick passenger. A child who was too weak. Bodies were found at the water's edge. But Cornelisz grew bolder. He ordered mass killings. Entire families, men, women, children, dragged from their shelters and executed on the beach. His men followed orders, because Cornelisz had convinced them they were building a new order, a better world. Narrative. 125 people were murdered. Some were drowned, some were strangled, some were hacked to death with tools from the wreck. And every time, Cornelisz watched. He didn't just tolerate the killing. He organized it. He scheduled it. He rewarded the men who were most efficient. Narrative. And here's what makes it worse. There was one group he could not reach. The soldiers Cornelisz had sent away, the ones he thought he'd dealt with, were still alive. Their leader was W.B. Hayes, a young soldier, not famous, not powerful, but stubborn. Narrative. Hayes and his men had found fresh water on their island. They had survived, and when word reached them about the murders, about what Cornelisz was doing, Hayes made a decision. He wasn't going to run. He was going to fight back. His men armed themselves with everything they could find. Makeshift weapons, rocks, tools. They turned their island into a fortress. Cornelisz sent men to eliminate Hayes. Twice, both times, Hayes and his soldiers held them off. And then, on the horizon, a ship appeared. Pelsaert had made it. Against impossible odds, he had crossed 2,000 miles of open ocean, reached Java, gathered a rescue ship, and returned. Narrative: the first people to reach him were Hayes's soldiers, paddling out in a makeshift raft, screaming a warning. Pelsaert listened. Narrative: Cornelisz and his men were captured, chained on the same island where they had killed. The trials began. Cornelisz showed no remorse. Even at the end, he argued he had done nothing wrong, that his victims had deserved it. Narrative: he was executed on the beach where many of them had died. 2 of his most loyal followers were marooned on the Australian mainland, possibly the first Europeans to ever set foot on Australian soil. They were never heard from again. Narrative: 125 people murdered on a remote island. No law, no authority, just one man who decided the rules no longer applied to him. The Batavia massacre happened nearly 400 years ago, but the question it raises hasn't changed. How much of human decency depends on the system holding it in place? And what happens when that system disappears? If you made it to the end, you already know the answer. The history they don't teach you is always the most important history there is. Follow for more. Whispering, because this is just the beginning.